Nawaz Sharif is clearly asking for the removal of the army from the scene because he knows, like everybody else does, that the military eats up most of Pakistan's budgetary allocations. So the army interferes in politics in Pakistan to make sure that all the bills they put up are paid for. So really the fault is not Imran Khan's, the fault is of the Pakistan army. The people of Pakistan are still divided in their view whether the army is the guardian of the state of Pakistan or is it actually responsible for the mess that Pakistan is in. Currently, Pakistan is facing a dual crisis. One, because the international community is putting a lot of pressure on Pakistan under the Financial Action Task Force to come clean in its arrangement with terrorist groups that are really an extended arm of the military deep state in Pakistan. And the other is now an unprecedented set of rallies across Pakistan that are not just large rallies, but they are targeting the one institution where until now the unwritten rule was that no criticism would be leveled at, and that is the Pakistan army. But the people of Pakistan are still divided in their view whether the army is the guardian of the state of Pakistan or is it actually responsible for the mess that Pakistan is in. Well, at least the 11 or so political parties led by Nawaz Sharif's PML and the Bhutto's PPP have gathered together under a PDM banner, that is a democratic movement, which wants, amongst other things, a 26-part demand that Pakistan's army and its intelligence agencies should go back to the barracks and not interfere with the way Pakistan is run. But the central question for the army is that if they go back away from the political game in Pakistan, then how do they continue to fund their lavish lifestyles? More of that as we talk about the events in Pakistan. To start with, Nawaz Sharif, elected Prime Minister a couple of times, has come out openly against the Pakistani military establishment. And ironically, Nawaz is a protege of the military because he was picked up from obscurity by Ziaul Haq and made into a political entity. So is Imran Khan. But Imran Khan is now being blamed by Nawaz Sharif for the political and economic mess that Pakistan is in. Nawaz Sharif is clearly asking for the removal of the army from the scene. Why? Because he knows, like everybody else does, that the military eats up most of Pakistan's budgetary allocations. Some say that annually it takes away up to 70% of the Pakistan economic outlay. The other argument is that virtually every large economic entity in Pakistan, transport agencies, hospitals, businesses, everything is run under the banner of some foundations that the army either has service officers posted to manage or retired generals, apart from many retired generals becoming anything and everything of consequence in Pakistan. For example, there is a retired lieutenant general who's recently come under flak for corruption into hundreds of millions of dollars in the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and which Imran Khan, interestingly, had opposed when he became Prime Minister, but was asked to accept. So the army's economic agenda is vast. Aisha Siddiqa, in her book Military INC, calls it Milbus, which is military business. So the army interferes in politics in Pakistan to make sure that all the bills they put up are paid for and they are not audited and not accounted. So the threat of India is actually played up by the army to draw more and more funding to ensure that they are well looked after both in service and after retirement. But this has become a nightmare for Pakistan because there's not enough money left. As it is in Pakistan, bulk of the people don't pay taxes. They are not aware of any taxation system that they have addressed in all their lives. So there is very little money that is really available from within the country. Pakistan lives on handouts and aid. China continues to give money, the army eats up the bulk of it. Saudi Arabia used to give them bailouts, some other Gulf countries used to give them bailouts. Again, a fat amount of that went for the military. It is the largest landowner in the country. It has close to 43% of Pakistan's lands are owned by the armed forces. And most importantly, it is permanently in the political saddle. They took a decision in the time of Zia's death that how do they remain influential but also draw enough sympathy from the West. So they decided to elect prime ministers of their choice. Benazir Bhutto was twice elected but twice dismissed by the army. Third time she was trying to come in when she got assassinated. Nawaz Sharif has had the same situation, all along portraying to the Western world that Pakistan is a democracy. It is actually a quasi-democracy at best. And most importantly, Pakistan is a master at projecting its relevance to the world, either for NGOs and others to provide aid in, or most importantly, to pay the role of America's handyman in Afghanistan for the time being, and subsequently, perhaps China's vassal state in giving China the necessary access to the warm waters of the Arabian Sea for a shortcut for China's oil supplies to come from the Gulf, go via Gwadar up to northern parts of POK and into China. But the other big problem that the army has to deal with is to contend with international observers on how Pakistan is going to deal with the vast terror mechanism that has come to stay in Pakistan. Pakistan actually put together a terror machinery, which is again a legacy of Ziaul Haq, to use them as proxy warriors against India. Now, this terror machinery has wide networks right across Punjab and the northwest frontier of Pakistan, but also in the areas of Karachi. There are different groups with loyalties to different leaders. Many of them are now on the UN sanctions list, and the FATF, the France-based Financial Action Task Force, has demanded that Pakistan fulfill at least 4 major requirements out of the 27-point list that they gave to Pakistan, of which Pakistan has only fulfilled the need for about 20 odd items, which were easy items that they were able to convince the FATF that they have addressed. This is about showing adequate demonstrable proof that Pakistan is going to prosecute those who do terror financing. Pakistan has to demonstrate that it will have effective sanctions against those involved or directly or indirectly connected with, again, terror financing, and it has to show demonstrable facts that it has enforced these things. So what Pakistan's been trying to do, and what they don't want to admit publicly, that these terror groups are proteges of the army, and the army set them up essentially to keep India under pressure and India unsettled in Kashmir and in the rest of India. But the army doesn't want to be named and labeled for the problems. Now, because of the army and because of the FATF grey list that Pakistan is in, Pakistan is unable to get adequate loans to actually go into development projects that it wants to fund, whether building more dams or roads or other projects, which will give the people of Pakistan the necessary pull out of the pathetic economic state that the country has come to. So really the fault is not Imran Khan's, the fault is of the Pakistan army. And because of keeping terror groups alive, who keep coming into the FATF list, and next time the FATF meets every few months later, they disappear from the list. Once again, they come into some other list, and then again Pakistan says, yes, they are blacklisted, but they are having a jolly good time in Pakistan. For example, Hafiz Saeed, the architect of the 26/11 attacks on India, and his military commander Zikrur Rahman Lakwi, Dawood Ibrahim. Sometimes the Masood Azhar has been named by international organization, but Pakistan's chief patron China ensures that he doesn't get completely proscribed by the UN. So essentially, Pakistan's having to battle with the ghosts of their past and what they have created. The army doesn't want them exposed because they will bring out the skeletons in Pakistan's cupboards. But the problem is that Pakistan, if it doesn't get the necessary funding from World Bank and IMF, where does it go? There are 3 countries right now that are backing Pakistan. China in a big way, because these terror groups also help unsettle India, but China doesn't want them to spill over from northern parts of POK into Xinjiang or Xinjiang, where China has large Muslim population that it's keeping under a tight hold. The second is Turkey, because Turkey has decided to become champion of the Islamic world to counter the Gulf countries who are now ganged up against Iran, and Turkey wanting to reclaim its historic influence on the Gulf region as part of the earlier, over 100 years old Ottoman Empire when it existed. And finally, you have Malaysia with the maverick leader, 92-year plus Mahathir Mohamad, who insists that Pakistan must get the kind of support they feel it deserves to make this Islamic coalition. The problem for all of them is that they individually cannot continue to keep bailing out Pakistan. That bailout can only come if the Western countries, the European Union and the United States, collectively engage with Pakistan through trade. But finally, the only way forward by the international community is not to keep imposing sanctions on Pakistan through the FATF and other UN mandated resolutions like 1267, but to ensure that the generals of Pakistan are denied visa to any Western country because they are sponsors of terror. So if you deny terrorists and those who sponsor terror elsewhere the facilities to enter your countries, why don't you deny visa to the chief sponsors of terror, that's the Pakistani generals, to the generals' families, their parents, brothers and their children who enjoy medical, educational and other facilities in Western countries, particularly America, should also come under sanction. And 3, Pakistan should receive greater amount of penalties from the international community, FATF or no FATF, when the US becomes honest about the fact that it is not turning its eye away from Pakistan anymore because it expects Pakistan to do its bit in terms of dealing with terrorism, and the US will only do that when it pulls out of Afghanistan. Until then, we are in a situation that the military in Pakistan will deal with dual challenges within and be under pressure from China to keep India under military pressure as long as the India-China standoff remains. And that is a challenge that the Pakistan military currently doesn't seem to be entirely prepared to deal with.